Hey YouTube, I'm Aaron Ross and welcome to this week's video where we are talking about the Fuji 50 to 140 2.8 and using it for sports photography. If you've been following along, I recently switched from Nikon to Fuji because my Nikon camera died on me, and I've been doing a little bit of an experiment where I use one of the lenses that I picked up for a week or for a photo shoot with the X-T3, and this week that is the 50 to 140 telephoto zoom lens. Now that is a little bit of an odd focal length. It really is the equivalent of the full frame 70 to 200s. This is a consistent aperture of 2.8 all the way through the zoom. It's an internal zoom, so when I am zooming back and forth, there is no extension of the lens. And when you flip this lens hood around, it does get a little lengthy, and you put it on the X-T3. It does feel a little out of balance at times, but that's why they've put the tripod mount on the lens itself. So if you're using it on a tripod or a monopod, it really balances really well. And like all Fuji lenses, there is an aperture ring right there on the lens. You have your zoom and then your focus ring there. Last thing to note about this lens before we jump into the photo shoot and how I use this lens is that it is weather resistant, so that means you can be out in a little bit of rain. Nothing too crazy. It's not waterproof. Don't go underwater shooting or anything like that. As we all know, it's all about getting started using the lens, not about what the specs say. So recently I went out and did a photo shoot with one of my friends. She runs a Instagram account, her own Instagram account called Marathoner Dale. She, as the Instagram handle says, runs marathons. She documents her journey from daily runs to yoga to all sorts of things within the running community. We went downtown Chicago to capture some of those classic Chicago scenes with her running so that she can post those to her Instagram. Now I will say I did use this lens, and that is going to be some of those that I focus on, but I did also use the 16 2.8 on this shoot just to get some of those wider building shots, a lot of the scene within the images, so that she can share not just her running, but also the context in which she's running in. I would say this lens, the 50 to 140, is one that you can isolate her and in the context and really compress a lot of that background and do a few other types of photos. So I did use both within this photo shoot. So we're gonna hop into the voiceover and a little bit of the behind the scenes, and then we'll come back and talk about the images that I was able to capture. First up is the Chicago Theater with more of a portrait shot rather than an action shot. This was to get the full sign with Dale in front of it and some of the cars moving behind her. We then went down the street and had her run towards me, still with the Chicago Theater behind her. We had to wait for some traffic to move, which obviously safety over the photo, but it took a few tries, her kind of running back and forth just a few times to try and get these shots. Here it's another running at the camera shot, but we were waiting for the L to pass behind her, which takes a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but eventually the train did come and we were able to get that shot. You can see her kind of checking it, we could hear it, and then it finally showed up. We did have to wait, kind of balance the people in the shot as well, but that's okay. Here at the Red Arches, we tried a few different setups for running at and across. We also got the Wrigley building with her in front of that. Of course, checking to make sure that we got the photo before moving on. Here's a photo that didn't work out quite as well as planned. I did put it on the tripod and tried to do a stacked exposure, but it was just a little bit too dark in front and too bright behind, even to do with the stacked exposure. Here down the Riverwalk, it was getting to be pretty busy as rush hour and commuting started happening. but we were able to get a few. Here you can see her running off in the distance. She's about to run up onto the bridge. What worked out is she ended up getting up there at a pretty empty time, so we had quite a bit of space to work with. And as she was running across, I was just firing off photos. I was able to get some decent stuff. All right, welcome back, and let's review some of the final images from that photo shoot. The first image is going to be the one outside of the Chicago Theater, where I wasn't using this 50 to 140. It was the 16 2.8, but we got the full theater, her standing in front of it, and that blurred car behind it, which was exactly what we were going for. But then this one, once we went down the street and kind of shot the Chicago Theater down the other way, this was using the 50 to 140, and you can see it was able to get her running in the street with the theater behind her and have a little bit of that compression. Now these with the L behind her and the sunrise kind of coming through the buildings, this also used the 50 to 140. These were a little backlit, and I probably, if I were to do these again, actually would bring a flash and maybe put some flash on the front of her just to make her pop out a little bit more. I did in post-processing edit her and brighten her up a little bit because these were pretty dark, but I am happy with how these turned out. I also went to what I call the Red Arch statue. I'm sure there's a real name for this. I don't know what it is. This was using the 16 to 8 because we really wanted that full context. And then most of the rest of that shoot was using the 16 to 8 because, again, I wanted the context. But then towards the end, we were on the Riverwalk, and that's when I put this 50 to 140 back on, and I think we got some really unique images here. One, there was just using the handrails of the Riverwalk as a leading line up into her as she was running towards me. But then as I stayed down on the Riverwalk, I sent her up to the Dearborn Bridge and had her run back and forth. And so I was quite a ways back and trying to get a little bit of context, but also have her running across the bridge. And I think these did really well. I was able to keep focus on her as she kind of ran back and forth, and paired with the Fuji X-T3 and all the way up to 30 frames a second that you can get if you really play with your settings and make sure you get it right. It does have a little bit of a crop at that point, but the image quality is still great in things like sports photography and probably wildlife as well, which I have not done with this lens. The tracking that you're able to get and not missing that moment in running, and something that Dale and I have learned doing these photos for her social media, is that there's a specific moment in the running stride that really looks best, and it can be hard to get that moment captured sometimes. When I was using the Nikon, which did not have anywhere near the frames per second, we had to have her run back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And by moving to the Fuji system and using these other lenses, I no longer have to have her run back and forth so many times. I still have her do it once or twice extra just to have those options, but in case something else was, her hair was kind of flowing in a way we didn't like or something like that. But I was able to get these images a lot faster because I was able to capture every moment throughout the stride. But again, like I always say, it isn't about the lens, it isn't about the gear, it's about getting out there, it's about using the gear that you have and just getting started. I know that's the tagline, but I wanted to spend some time. We're wrapping up this series where I use a lens for a week or for a certain photo shoot. I'm gonna really be stopping talking about gear because it's not what matters. It's about getting out and shooting, about using your gear, telling the story of where you are and the surroundings that you might be in and the people that you're with. And so I hope you've enjoyed this series. If you have questions, if you have thoughts on these photos, please leave them below. I will try and answer them as much as I can. But until next time, just get started.